guys? Today I'm going to be doing the Ronin M video, basically an overview going over how I balance the system, how I operate it. A lot of people are asking me all the time, how do I keep things in focus while I'm moving around with it? So this is going to be a very comprehensive video, maybe super long, but I'll try to add in some time dials to where certain sections start, if that makes sense. So let's just dive straight into it. The first thing we're going to get into is the actual balancing of the system. So when you get the Ronin M or Ronin or whatever you have the option to use the lens bracket, the lens support system, the little bracket that comes with it. And I'm not personally going to use that right now, and I don't really use it typically. But I just want to show you all what hole I typically mount into, and more than likely, like all the time, I mount into this second hole right here. So I'm going to be using the A6300. I have a Photodiox Pro adapter and the Sigma 18-35, which a lot of people have. And typically with these adapters, the speed boosters or whatever you have the little bracket that comes on them for mounting to tripods or gimbals in this instance. So you're going to want to use this because it gives you enough clearance to where you don't need the lens support bracket, and it's not going to hit the plate when you go to mount it. As you can see, like right there, it has enough clearance right there. So typically I mount to this hole right here. So we'll do that, and then we'll get into the balancing. Typically with my Ronin M system, I rarely take it apart. So if this were balanced to my camera, then it would take me literally almost like not even a minute to just slide this in here and be balanced for the most part. But I believe this is configured for the GH5, so I have to go through a full rebalance right here, which is good because I can show you all how I do it. So the first thing that we are going to do is just to slide this in and get a rough balance on the in and out in terms of the tilt axis. So this is rough. We just want to get it so it sits up a little bit. It's not going to be perfect. I think that's fine right there. So once you put that in and you mount it, you're going to want to tip your camera on its back. So the goal here with the tilt axis balance right here is to get your camera to stay perfectly level in the air. As you can see right here, when we try to do it, it bounces back forward. So we're going to tip our camera on its back, undo these two latches right here. We're just going to slide it either up or down until your camera stays straight up in the air. So as you can see right there, that's perfect. Stays straight up, it doesn't go forward or back. And it's not going to be completely perfect, we just get it to as close as possible so it doesn't strain the motors. So after you do that, next thing we're going to adjust is the actual roll on the Ronin M. Actually, mine is going a bit forward, so let me just push this backwards just so it doesn't tilt forward while we're trying to adjust this roll axis. So I'm just going to slide this back just a little bit so it sits. And that's good right there. So next thing we're going to adjust is the actual roll. And as you can see, mine isn't bad, but if you were to slide this in and let's say that, let's just mess this up real quick so you can see what will most likely happen to you if you're doing this wrong. So as you can see, the tilt is going this way. So what we want to do is we want to loosen these and we want to shift the camera over this way. So whichever direction that your camera is leaning towards, you want to shift it into the opposite direction. So we're just going to shift this over to the left until we get this to sit up straight. And I think that's good right there. And as you can see, the camera's sitting pretty still. So if we go through and we test this out, as you can see, the camera sits on its back for the most part. It's coming a little bit forward, so let's just adjust this again. Just so it sits straight up in the air. That's good. We're going to bring it down. Make sure it doesn't go forward or back. And as you can see, this is a good balance in terms of your tilt and roll axis. The next thing that we are going to adjust is the actual pan axis. And this is actually right here with this lever. So what you're going to want to do is, before we even undo this, your goal with this pan axis is, if you lift this up, you want it to stay directly parallel to your grip handle on top. So as you can see, when we hold it up, it's rotating a little bit. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to undo this latch right here, and you're either going to twist this forward or backwards. Typically, if your setup is heavier, it's going to go more towards the back of the camera. I believe so, don't quote me on that one, but just go either forward or backwards until you find you're getting closer to where this actual pan axis stays completely parallel to your top handle. So as you can see right here, I don't know if we're getting closer or further. Let's just continue to see, because it wasn't that bad at first. So I'm just going to continue to move it backwards to see if we're actually getting closer or further away from this. So as you can see, we're getting further, so we want to come more back this way. A few notches, getting pretty close. So let's just go back maybe one notch. And as you can see, that's perfect. It stays pretty much parallel to the top handle. So you just want these two to line up when you do this. So after you do this, your system is pretty much balanced right there. As you can see, it stays in whatever position you hold it in. And it's not going to be any strains on the motors when you go to turn this on. So let's just power this on, and then we'll go over the settings in your app on your phone. All right, so typically when I do use my Ronin, as I said, I don't take it apart. So when I slide this in and I power it on, I just go with the motor settings that I used for my previous use of it. So let's just go over how to set it up when you're first doing it. Every time you switch your camera setup, you should go to your motor settings right here. And you should always do an auto tune stability first. After your auto tune stability is complete, typically what I personally do is I just go through and I up the stiffness on each one of my axes just a little bit, anywhere from 5 to 10. Depending on what the motors will allow. You'll know you up this amount too far when your motors begin to vibrate. So let me just up this way up so you all can see what happens when you up it way up too far. I don't know if y'all can hear this, but it's vibrating pretty hard. So we'll just bring this back down. As I said, I typically go up between 5 and 10. So let's just put this around a 46, and this is good. You can always touch your camera motors every time you do add an adjustment to this, just to see if it's too stiff, and if it's too stiff, it'll actually vibrate. So as I said, just up this between 5 and 10. I'll do like a 27 on my tilt. Make sure my pan is good. Try that. And I'm also going to up my roll to say like a 53. Anywhere in that range is fine. You can see like your amounts of power that is outputting on the camera right here, and as you see, it's pretty much balanced. It's not really outputting any power on this, so this is a good balance right here. Let's just go over my smooth track settings. From rolling, I'll turn my roll smooth track on, and this is the speed that I personally use on this. I do 15 on all, 0 on deadband, and 0 on SL. And you can go through and you can adjust these and just go through the test pan speed to see what personally works for you. I like to do mine fairly slow. I don't like to really do too many fast things on my Ronin, so you can just go through and just adjust these to what basically works for you personally. And all of these other things are basically subjective in what you personally want to do. If you want to use briefcase mode, you can turn that on. If you want to turn roll control on, that's fine as well. Silent mode, I don't typically use silent mode that much because I'm not really doing live audio with this a lot of the time. So that's typically what I do. And it's in this section of the actual app for the Ronin. It's a bunch of different setups you can do right here as well. This is for the thumb controller, which I don't have, and deadband and stuff like that. So it's just a bunch of different settings that you can do with this. But those are just the typical ones that I personally go over when I do set up my Ronin M. So we went over the balance and perspective of the actual Ronin M. Now we're going to get into how I shoot with it. First thing we're going to go over with the Ronin is walking with it. I see a lot of people walking and they just walk how they walk, which isn't the ideal way to walk with the Ronin because it doesn't have an axis there to really block the bounce from it like you see on a Steadicam with the arm system and stuff like that. So let's just do an example of what people typically do with the Ronin. So people will turn their Ronin on, their Ronin on, and they'll just walk how they walk. So when you walk regular, this is what you get. As you can see in this example right here, you're getting a lot of bounce in the shot. But what you want to do with the Ronin is you want to bend your knees. So bending your knees and keeping your arms as close to your core as possible is what's going to give you the smoothest shot. As you can see right here, I got my knees bent, and I'm not really running. I'm just tiptoeing, walking real soft, and as you can see, this is a lot smoother shot than the last shot that we just showed. Next thing that we're going to go over with the Ronin M is the focusing aspect of it, which is what a lot of people ask me all the time. And it's a bunch of different factors that really factor into having the Ronin M completely in focus when you're using it, or just semi in focus, or to the point where the typical viewer can't really tell if it's in focus or not. So the first thing that we're going to really take a look at is focal lengths. A lot of people don't really think about focal lengths in terms of what they want in focus, and it actually really matters a lot. So for instance, if the Sigma 835 lens that I'm using right now, it has the ability to go all the way down to a 1.8, so if I were planning on using a 1.8 with this and I wanted as much in focus as possible, I would shoot as wide as possible. What I'm gonna do real quick is I'm gonna shoot the exact same shot at 18 millimeters all the way down to the 1.8, and I'm gonna shoot the shot again at 35 millimeters at an f1.8. And I'm just gonna move all around. I'm not gonna stay in my focus distance. And I want you all to see that focal length actually does really matter to what the typical viewer can see is in focus or not, and how obvious it is. So as you can see right here, I'm focusing on this gray box. So just pay attention to it. I'm gonna move all the way around. I'm just gonna do typically what I would do at a music video shoot if I were filming a subject and he was performing. Gonna go all around. And as you can see, I'm clearly moving in and out of my focus range. And the fact that I'm at 18 millimeters, you can't even really see what exactly is in focus and what's not. It just appears that everything is in focus. And if it does get to a point where it does look like it's out of focus, I'll just simply cut this shot in post. So this is at 18 millimeters at f1.8. Now we're gonna shoot the exact same shot at 35 millimeters on the same lens, focus at the exact same spot. And as you can see, the focal length really does matter. I'm doing free range, and if you use a higher focal length and you're trying to keep a lot more in focus, then it's a lot more obvious than shooting at a wider focal length. The next focusing technique that I do use when I'm using a Ronin is basically staying within my focus range. And what that means is I try to stay the exact same distance from the subject as when I initially set my focus point. So say I'm focusing on this particular sign right here. Again, what I would do is I would try to stay the exact same distance around it. So this is good when you're doing like those circle motions. So say I was doing a semicircle like this. Let me actually just record this so you all can see. This is actually at a 1.8 aperture, so let me make sure I get this focus good. And focus beacon also helps with this as well. If you don't know what focus beacon is, set it on your camera. It just highlights in the shot what exactly is in focus. So as you can see right here, I'm trying to stay the exact same distance away from my subject, and focus beacon will help me with this as well, because if it's not in focus, then it won't be lit up. So this is another focusing technique that I like to use with these semi-circle shots, or just shots in general where I know I'm gonna need a very crisp image. Next focusing technique that I like to use, typically those shots you see where I go in and out on the subject, and a lot of it seems in focus, but it's not. If it's not really in focus, I'll just cut it out in editing. But the way that I do these shots is I focus in between my paths. So what I mean by this is, say that this trash can right here is gonna be my subject. So the trash can is my subject, and I know that I'm gonna be moving backwards around this distance right here. What I do is I go in between this focus path and I focus in the middle. And what this does is it's just gonna ensure me that a lot more of the shot is in focus than if I were to move close to the trash can and set my focus point there, or if I were to move all the way back and set my focus point there. So we'll just do this so I can show you all how this looks. You can see right here, I set my focus path in the middle of my focus path. I set my focus point in the middle of my focus path, And we'll just go in and out, typically how I do on music video shots. Go in, I'm going past my focus path right here. I'm going back. And as you can see, a lot of this seems in focus. You probably can't even tell that this is not in focus. And it's a shot at a 1.8 at 18 millimeters. Another thing that's gonna help y'all with these in and out shots is shooting as wide as possible. Again, as I said, when you shoot as wide as possible, it's very hard for the viewer to tell what exactly is in focus and what's not in focus. That right there is gonna conclude my Ronin M overview video. I went over how I focus without having a follow focus on the system. A lot of people were asking about it. I went over balancing. If there is a subject or a topic with using a Ronin M that I didn't personally go over that you're interested in knowing, let me know down in the comments. I'll make sure to let you all know the answer to whatever questions you do have. If you like this, make sure to drop me a like, comment, and also subscribe to the channel. Peace.